You were Impact Kitchen's first ever customer.
I emailed you cold. I didn't know who you were. And I said, I already love you. I'm your biggest fan. When are you opening? Let's connect. I was at your restaurant 3 or 4 times a day.
I remember at one point you said to me, I'm just going to give you my entire food budget, which I will thank you now and forever.
Your team started calling it a Geo Bowl because they're like, that's Geo's custom order. And then my friends would hear me order that. And then they would go up to the cash saying, can I have a Geo Bowl, which wasn't on the menu.
And now it's evolved to the Everyday Bowl,
Yeah.
but it still stems from the
Geo
Geo Bowl,
Bowl.
100%.
My advice or invitation to anyone watching, if you have a desire, especially one that will impact other people in a positive way, have the courage to take that first step and see where it leads and watch the magic happen.
Geo, thank you so much for being on the Impact Community Podcast. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a long time. I really appreciate you being here today.
I am so honored.
I want to start off quickly. I know you just got back from one of your big events in Beverly Hills. Tell me how it was.
It was a very proud moment for what my team and I created. It was a very high level luxury kind of experience. We were at one hotel, West Hollywood, for parts of it. Then we rented this crazy private estate in Bel Air where we did a bunch of the event there. And then so much surprise. We had 60 very accomplished founders, entrepreneurial people who are changing the world to connect and mastermind. And then we did this epic closing party that I called Supernova, where we had another 120 people at this private mansion. I don't even know how to explain it. We had musical performances, we had dancers, we had circus performers, we had DJs. And the whole thing was around people like us connecting and talking about how to create the next chapter of our stories.
That's incredible. I have no doubt it was amazing being at many of your events over the years. But I want to take you way back, 15 years ago, your time at Century 21, Sotheby's Realty. Take us through, the arc of your real estate career and kind of where you were at in your life, going back 15 plus years.
So the last job I ever had was at a place called Strategic Coach, run by a genius man named Dan Sullivan. And I was doing the marketing there. I left in 2005 to start marketing, consulting, marketing, coaching. That led me into real estate in 2010. And we were selling pre-construction condos to investors in Toronto and really crushed it. I did very well. We were winning awards, being featured in magazines. I was in Toronto Life, all these really cool things. And secretly, I was depressed because it wasn't ever aligned with me. I did it to make money and we did well. And on paper, things looked good. But it wasn't aligned with me. But I'm extremely grateful for that opportunity because it allowed me to invest in myself in mastermind groups and conferences and personal development. And while I was doing that, nothing felt like it was the group I wanted to be in. So I started my own to fulfill my own need to be around people like me and you who want to create impact. It's not just make impact and not just make money, but why can't we do both? So on the side, I started producing events. And that's where Archangel, my company, was born. And that was in early 2014. And that just took off. So that by 2016, I quit real estate completely and started doing our private, intimate mastermind events and our large summits. And that started in Toronto.
Nice. Well, I definitely want to dig into all those things, but I want to take you back even further.
Cool.
So I would call you the definition of a dreamer. And I'm curious if there's something from your childhood that sparked that part of your personality that, we all know so well today.
I think as a child, my fascinations were first film and movies. Seeing the very first movie I saw in theaters, it was E.T., if you remember back then.
Of course.
I don't know if you were old enough.
Yeah.
E.T., Gremlins, and Neverending Story. And I had, my parents loved film. I had an uncle who was obsessed and he kind of really made me love them too. So there was the film, movie stuff. And then by high school, discovering comic books, right? And in between all of that, we were moving around a lot with my family to different homes, which means I was always the new kid. And then there was a moment in 5th grade where the school boards did IQ testing. And I scored really, really high. And they said, okay, cool, you're gifted. So once a week, you're going to go to a different school with our gifted class. And that was awesome. But then coming back to regular school, I'd be bullied for being smart. And that was painful, which one day I actually came home crying to my parents thinking, why is this happening to me? I didn't understand. So I secretly hate the word gifted until high school when I started reading comic books. And back then, now it's very cool to like superheroes. When in the 90s, it wasn't. You were a dweeb, nerd, geek, all those were bad words. But I love them. Spider-Man, Iron Man, all that. And then I discovered the X-Men. And the very first time I opened an X-Men book, the phrase Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters was there, which is part of the story. And I saw that word gifted, which I hated, but it meant superpower. And it kind of changed my life to see that. And in high school, I would tell my friends, when I grow up, I want to lead a team of superheroes like the X-Men. And I was very serious. And if you fast forward to today, I feel like that's what we've done. So I found that painful experiences as a child sometimes unlock your superpowers as an adult. And being bullied and always being the new kid forced me to figure out how to get people to like me and how to make friends and build relationships. And that's what I do. And back to your dreaming, I was a daydreamer as a child, and often told to stop doing that. I think we all have things that we did as a child that made us stand out that we're told to stop doing because it makes us stand out. And that was the thing for me. And as an adult, I dream professionally. I made a movie called Dreamer. I talk about setting really big goals and how to reverse engineer them. And I live a dream. And I invite other people to realize that that's possible.
That's so cool. It's interesting, when you were telling that story, it sparked a thought in my mind that I don't think about a ton, but you talk about, these little moments when you're a child that can change the trajectory of your life. And I had a similar, but almost the opposite experience in grade 3. I remember going in for testing and I wasn't gifted. I was the opposite. They said, you have learning disabilities, ADHD. And I remember being outside the door, them telling this to my mom and, being sad and confused. But I also remember at the end, they also said, but he's in the top 99 percentile in these couple things. And so I've hung on to that my entire life of, yes, I have all these challenges, but I have these few things that I'm really good at. So it's kind of given me this like almost weird confidence going into different situations in my life. And, I pulled that with me kind of going into my adult. And even today, I think that way. Yeah. So anyway, interesting how these moments in childhood change your direction in life.
Even ADD, a lot of these scenarios, we think they're a curse or a weakness, and they can be if we treat them like that, but they're actually secret strengths.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Right? Someone described ADD as having a Ferrari engine for a brain, but not knowing how to drive a Ferrari. Driving that type of car is different than driving a Toyota. It's just different. You have to learn how to drive it. But once you do, you realize you have a very powerful engine. ADD's like that. Autism can be like that. All of these types of things, even experiencing painful or traumatic events, they will often unlock or be a catalyst for parts of you that can help a lot of other people.
Well, and actually going to many of your events and hearing some of the world-class speakers I've heard, it seems to be a common thread amongst them that they pulled on something from their childhood that has given them, a superpower, which I know you talk about all the time.
Well, if you can excuse one more comic book reference, the reason I love X-Men and people love those kinds of stories isn't because they have powers, it's because they are flawed. And that's where the stories focus on their flaws, and that's where we get the human connection with people like that in the stories and fall in love with them. And the superpower or the gift is often on the other side of the flaw. They're deeply connected, and anything we think about as a flaw or a curse or something painful, there is a flip side to it. And if you figure out what that is, that flaw has relevance. And it has meaning, and it can actually be special.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, Geo, I want to jump around again here. So now I'm going to take you back to 2015. You were Impact Kitchen's first ever customer. Tell me about that period of your life, how you found out about us, and how we connected originally.
So because I was in real estate and selling condos, I owned a condo around the corner from that first restaurant. and I used it as an office. And every day I would go for walks on King Street and Queen, all that whole neighborhood. And one day I was going for a walk and I see this retail space under construction with signage that says Impact Kitchen. Here's our motto, coming soon. And I get obsessed with things like this because there was nothing healthy to eat anywhere near me. And at the time I was grossly overweight and really wanted to become healthy. So I reverse engineer. I think I tracked you down by figuring out, okay, who owns the domain name of this restaurant? How do I find this person? I found your email address. I emailed you cold. I didn't know who you were. And I said, I already love you. I'm your biggest fan. When are you opening? Let's connect. And you were gracious enough to actually respond and say, hey, come check out the restaurant as we build. And we developed a friendship. I was the first customer, I believe, one of your top customers. The joke I remember for the first year was, I paid your hydro bill and I paid your...
Yes, I remember those days very well.
I was at your restaurant every day for a year, at least once, but often 2, 3, or 4 times a day.
Well, I am forever grateful. I remember at one point you said to me, I'm just going to give you my entire food budget, which I will thank you now and forever. But what I'm also grateful for is, the inspiration and learning I gained just from kind of watching you operate within our restaurant. You really used it as a hub for yourself to host meetups, whether it was with one person or 10 people or even larger when you kind of asked to use our cafe space, which was always an automatic yes. And I was always so curious about what you were doing, why you were hosting these events. And I'm curious now, like back then, 2015, what was the kind of idea behind these? What was the purpose? And what were you trying to get out of hosting so many events back then?
My whole secret to growth and success is around curating amazing humans who want to be around each other. And I think information isn't useful or valuable anymore. It's abundant. And now we even have AI. So that doesn't matter. But when you are known as someone who's connected to someone else who can unlock your next chapter, or someone who's connected to someone else that has real world expertise that's useful, or a network or access, all those kinds of things, you become a very valuable resource. And I built my entire business around relationship and around connection. And I always wanted, go back to when you and I were kids, there's a famous show on TV called Cheers. And the tagline was where everybody knows your name. You walk into a place, and my dream was to always have a restaurant where I would walk in and everyone knew my name. And yours was the first one and only one where that's actually happened in my 50 years of existence. So it was, and you and I are very aligned too on the idea of community building, and the fact that you were creating a restaurant that's based on community. Which, when does that happen? Never, right? So, and the food was incredible and not expensive, so it allowed me to invest in those relationships. Like if I had to take people out to different restaurants and do the exact same thing at other places, it would have been a 10x expenditure and not healthy, right? So the side benefit of me going there every day was losing 70 pounds.
Yes. No, I remember, I think when you say everyone knows your name, well, you essentially got a bowl named after you, yeah. Where my team knew exactly what you wanted before you'd even get to the POS, which was special for all of us back then, because you were also one of our only customers in those first few months as well. Yeah. So I remember those days really well. You had this incredible passion for elevating others, bringing community together and creating value. I'm curious, during that first year of hosting those meetups, when did it go from passion to a business model? Or when did you knew you had something here and you needed to go further and kind of push your real estate career aside?
Well, to give a bit of context, I've been producing events since I was 17. And in high school, this is in the early 90s, we started going to these things called all ages dance parties, which is the thing in Toronto. I don't know if it exists anywhere else. At the same time, there was also raves. Rave culture was big, but we wanted to do parties where there were no drugs, no alcohol. It was like a safe place for teenagers to dance. And as we were attending these things, we thought, well, we can do this. My best friend and I in high school, I don't know why or what possessed us, but we found a way as 17-year-olds to rent an Italian banquet hall. It was called Luna Ballroom. And we had 1,000 people at our first party. And that night after the event was done, I had what I call a bliss attack. It's like, I can't believe I get to do this. This is my thing. I already knew when I was 17. We started doing more events, more parties. By the time we were 20, we had like 3,000 to 5,000 kids a week coming to our events. So I entered the world of event production very early. And then fast forward to while I was in real estate, starting to go to entrepreneurial events, thinking, oh, this is cool. This exists in this world. And I know how to do events. Why don't I create events for myself? And it started that way, and people fell in love with the experiences, and I over-delivered, and the word just spread. I don't think I haven't done advertising at all for our events, like paid ads, but no Facebook ads, nothing that other people think they have to do. Our events have been completely word of mouth, even with 3,000 people attending at a time. And that's a lot because of my philosophy with these things, where I see marketing not as what gets you a client. To me, marketing is what happens after someone pays you. Because if you create an incredible memory for someone and an amazing experience, they want to tell other people. When someone comes to your restaurants, they have amazing food, amazing experience. They naturally want to tell other people because it actually makes them look good to do that.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to invest as much in marketing. To me, marketing is investing in experience. And it's worked.
Absolutely. I think the $1 million question for so many entrepreneurs and people that attend your events and others is, okay, I have this great idea. Now, how do I make it a business? When you meet that person, I know you coach people, and I know many of the speakers at your events talk about this. What do you recommend to somebody when it's such a hard thing to take an idea into actual action? How do you break that down, and what's your advice to our audience?
I have a very simple framework and model for this, which is probably counterintuitive. If you want to, quote unquote, change the world, you start by changing yourself first. And then you change one person. And then, 10. And focus, and you grow like concentric circles or exponentially. And you make sure that one person, that those first 10 or first 100 become transformational success stories for you, because a transformed client or customer is the best marketing. And you grow that way versus starting off thinking, well, I need to have 1,000 clients or 10,000 or 1 million or some really big number. I like to think in big numbers, but it always starts with one.
Yeah.
And it's like dominoes, right? You hit the first domino, and then the momentum can start building. But to me, this is for someone who's starting off bootstrapping from scratch. If you have investment, that's a whole different world, but still you have to think this way. And it's very important to make money, create revenue, all that kind of stuff. But people in my world, money is the tool that fuels the mission. It's not necessarily the mission. And I've always wanted to find a different way a different measuring stick to measure progress and growth and success. And for me, the currency is stories. I like to say now that in my lifetime, I want to collect 1 million stories of transformation from people who've been through our ecosystem in some way. And that to me is the definition of millionaire. It's like 1 million stories. And we're on our way. It's going to take my whole life, but I love collecting these stories.
That's awesome. And it really is, one step at a time, one person at a time. Whenever I'm speaking to a founder, they have the vision. Obviously, they've got a great vision for where they're going to be, but so many times they haven't thought of the first 10 steps to achieve that, and that's when they get tripped up. So I love what you said there.
Thanks. And I love that I'm your first story.
That's true. I've said time and time again, you're the common denominator of the people you spend the most time with. And for me, it was transformative during my personal training career of, having this amazing group of clients like my business partner, Frank, and many other top performers that took my level of ambition and what I thought is possible and really elevated it. For you going through, during your real estate career or any other time when you were surrounding yourself with, a new group of people, how was that impactful for you? And do you have any standout stories for if it ever kind of hit upon you, like, okay, I can really, achieve my dreams or I'm elevating my level of ambition?
The most impactful thing I've ever done was invest in being in rooms full of people who are ahead of me on my journey. Mm-hmm. Especially those where it created imposter syndrome for me. Yeah. And because I think you need that kind of thing to shake you up. And because I had, first off, maybe the courage to say yes to invitations to events like that, where it wasn't cheap, it was expensive at the time. And the ROI on a relationship is infinite.
Yeah.
Now I feel like I'm paying it forward by creating those rooms for other people. So find me if you're watching me or hearing my voice. I will invite you into a room that will unlock doors to your next chapter by showing you or connecting you to people who are doing things on a whole another level.
It's so true. There's so many options to talk about here, but what I found at your events, and you've curated these world-class experiences. And often the biggest memory, which don't take this the wrong way, is getting a coffee with someone off to the side or walking from one area to the next area and having a 3-minute conversation with somebody. And you're right, it's the people that are there that create the experience. It's been so fun at your events.
I like to feel like I manufacture serendipity. Like those moments are the moments I want to create. Those are lifetime memories. And sometimes it's a 3-minute conversation with someone you just met that changes your trajectory.
100%. You mentioned imposter syndrome. So over the years, I've been at a lot of your events, and there definitely is that imposter syndrome. When you're at a table with someone who is famous in their own right, or just a ultra high achiever. For you, how I'm sure you've experienced it over the years. What are your recommendations for how you've gotten over it, or how do you even think about imposter syndrome today?
I see it as a gift, in the same way I see envy and jealousy as a gift, which I'll explain both. Okay. When I was experiencing it in like 2012, 13, 14, where I was in rooms with people I would consider my heroes, my entrepreneurial heroes, people who've accomplished big things, maybe had big platforms, best-selling books, or whatever it was. And then, now I'm friends with all these people. And the realization was, if I'm in this room, I belong here. And the feeling of belonging is what we make sure happens at our events. Because the biggest secret is every single person has imposter syndrome in some way.
Yeah.
Right? Even, I'll never forget this. I'll keep names confidential, but at one of our events, we had an attendee whose company is closing in on $1 billion in revenue a year. And he secretly came up to me and was like, I don't know anything about online marketing. And I'm almost scared to talk about this because of who I am. Every single person has things where they have a lot of expertise and wisdom and resource and access. And then they have other areas where, to quote my kids, they feel like a noob, like they have no idea what they're doing. And we all have these things. Every single person has something like this. And once you understand that there's no, especially in our world, there's no pedestals. It doesn't matter what you've accomplished. It matters who you are. And we're all sort of equal. We're all in the same playing field when it comes to that. And the faster someone realizes that, and then, where you feel that imposter syndrome is a clue, or especially fear, is a clue to where you can grow capability and skill. There's nothing wrong with you. It's an area where you can develop your next skill set. And the same with, envy and jealousy. There's a positive to those emotions because, for example, if you're listening to me right now, chances are you're not envious of someone who owns a garbage collection company, unless you really love garbage collection for whatever reason. You're not envious of that. You're not jealous of that person. Those emotions give you clues to your next chapter of things you desire or ways you want to grow. And if you shift it from negative energy to positive to aspiration, to think, oh, maybe I can do this thing, it gives you clues as to the next chapter of your story.
That's great and so true. So 2016, the fall, you were leading up to your first big event. Now, it was funny because I think back, and I remember 2015, 16, everybody from customers to team members knew you in the restaurant. And I'd often get asked, what does that guy do? Like, what does Giovanni do? And I can't say I had a great answer. I can't say I knew what you did other than real estate, which you were tapering off at that point anyway. And then we all show up to your event, 3,000 people, some of the biggest speakers in the world at that time. And it kind of knocked my socks off and I think the rest of Toronto's. And it's like, okay, this is what Giovanni does. This is why he's been hosting meetings and meetups every week for the last year and longer. I don't know if I've ever asked you this before. What was the feeling after that first big event?
Oh man, euphoria, bliss. The way to describe that feeling, and it's available to anybody, is if you treat yourself as an artist, and people may not resonate with that word yet, but we are all creators in some way. Well, let me play a game with you for fun, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Do you believe you use your imagination today as an adult more or less than when you were a child?
I think more now.
Okay, then you're an exception, because anytime I ask someone this question, they'll say less. And when I speak on stages, I'll use this too. And what I usually say is, that's crap. You use it exactly the same, but as an adult, you call it anxiety. And what I mean by that is we all live in the present, but we operate in the past and the future. And when we're thinking about what if statements, what if I get rejected? What if something bad happens? What if this doesn't work out? It's all fiction. It's all us using our imagination to think about a future that doesn't exist yet. And that is the greatest gift we've been given, and we're not using that gift in the right way if we're afraid or if we're anxious, because no other creatures can do this. And we can also imagine what we want to create. We can also imagine what we want to build, what we want to accomplish, and then take that idea and make it real. So when I produce an event, I see events as my canvas, as my art, and then I imagine the experience and how it's going to go, and then I actually create it. And so the biggest gift is being at the events, watching an audience and attendees, and even the speakers and everyone involved feel that joy and that awe and feeling their lives being changed in the moment, and then getting the stories after of what, even sometimes years after, of what transpired and how they were impacted, how they were able to impact other people. And I feel like I'm the steward of this thing and I get to watch it unfold. But it's the act of dreaming it first, reverse engineering it, making the plan and making it happen. You can't just dream. You have to actually take action on these things. But these are my creations, and they become lifetime memories for me and everyone who was there.
Well, it's a lot harder than you're making it sound, because that takes a lot of work. So I want to commend you first off for what you're achieving. But I'm curious. So we reference biggest names in the world. I could list off the Gary V's, the Simon Sinek's, JJ Virgins, Mark Hyman's, so many amazing people that you've brought into your events. I've heard you talk about the aligned path method before. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that and how you do this.
Yeah. Well, what this is essentially how to ask anyone for anything and how to get what you want. And I'll use a specific example or case study, which was our very first event that you mentioned. It was called Archangel Summit. Now we call them Destiny Fest. And at that first one, I wanted thousands of people in the audience, and I wanted really recognized big speakers on stage. Gary Vee was one of them. And another one was Seth Godin, who is my favorite author of all time for marketing
Yeah.
books. And I didn't know Seth. I didn't know how to be connected to Seth, which is, it's always a challenge if you have to send someone a cold email. The only thing I knew was that he checks his email, which is, he's crazy for that. I don't know. He's wild. So I thought, how do I convince the best marketer in the world to come to my event? And he doesn't know me, and he hates flying. He's based in New York, but he hates flying. And I'll share what I wrote first that made him say yes, and then the mechanics behind it, which anyone can copy. So I email him and I say, Seth, I'm your biggest fan, and you've heard that a million times, and I've read all your books, and I'm sure you've heard that a million times. But here's the thing I'm sure you haven't heard before. I am your success story. I am your case study. And I actually worked out how specific books of his that I've read, how I've applied the wisdom to build what I've built. And I created myself as a transformational case study for him. And I ended it by saying, and now, thanks to you and thanks to me being your student and following your instruction, I've created an event that only exists because of you. Would you do us the honor of speaking at this thing that we're birthing? That's all thanks to me being your student. And his response was, how do I say no to this?
Oh man, that's great.
And so it worked. And the premise behind it is every single human has their own individual path that they're on. Where they are in their present day, the future they want to get to. And they all have maybe obstacles in their way or puzzles they're trying to solve, or resources they need. If you can figure out someone else's path and you figure out how you can be valuable to get them to their future faster, and you help them on their path, they will want to help you. The challenge is we always want what we want first, and we don't think about the other person. Or we might ask us a dumb question like, how can I help you? Which that's the worst question to ask anybody, because you're giving them homework to figure out who you are and how you can help them. No one wants that question. But and then with someone like Seth, or when people are very successful or accomplished, it becomes a challenge. You have to figure out what's important to them. And with someone like Seth, who's done so well for decades, and what does he want? And I realized someone like that really wants to know that the blood, sweat, and tears mattered. That it wasn't for nothing. That someone actually paid attention and did something with his work to create change. So that took me a while to figure out. But everyone has something. Gary Vaynerchuk spoke at that first event. And how do you get to Gary? Well, he was launching a book at the time. So I thought, okay, well, if someone's launching a book, what do they want? They want to be a successful author. So I said, if I buy thousands of copies of your book, will you speak at my event? So I had to take a big bet and risk on that. But once he said yes, it was a bit easier probably to get Seth, because there was like that connection. And then I had Gary said yes, Seth said yes. And I had met Robin Sharma by complete serendipity at the Toronto airport. We're getting on the same flight to LA. And I recognized it was him. And I said, I'm never going to have this chance again. I just went up to him and started chatting with him, explaining what I did. And he took a liking to me. And then 2 years later, we were doing our event. And I reached out and I said, hey, I have Gary and Seth. I'm looking for one more keynote. And you're based in Toronto at the time. He lived in Toronto. Would this be easy for you? And he's like, yeah, sure. And that's how it started. And then reach out to friends like Jason Gaynard and JJ and a bunch of other people. Would you like to speak at this event alongside Seth, Gary, and Robin? And it's like a kind of no-brainer at that point. And that's what kicked everything off. And it's always about how can I figure out what the other person's path is, and how can I be valuable and useful to them on their journey?
That's awesome. It's incredible how memorable that first event was. And I remember, because we knew each other so well at that point, like the level of pride I had, and now telling people about the event. And you're right, it really was like a word of mouth buzz going on in the city at that point, and obviously set you on a path to where you've gotten today.
You brought me butter coffee that morning.
Yeah, that's right. That's
10
right.
years ago.
I think that got me backstage. I was pretty pumped for that. So we talked about being a dreamer. Another word I'd associate with you is community builder. Before we really dive into that, I'm curious, what do you get from community?
I think we all want to belong to something. And I think there's a huge benefit to realizing each of us can lead a community. And the way it works is to figure out, what you value, what you believe, and people who are on a similar journey to each other. Because I love film, I like to talk about heroes' journeys and storylines. And if you think of any major film that has a group of characters on the same mission together, usually they're different people, meaning they come from different places. They're not all the same. Think of Lord of the Rings or The Matrix or Wizard of Oz or whatever it is. It's a group of heroes that have a mission or a quest, and they have obstacles along the way. To me, that's what community is. It's not necessarily, it can be, but it's not necessarily, let's say all 35-year-old chiropractors who live in a specific city. That could be a community, but it could also be a bunch of different people from different categories, different industries, diverse cultures, whatever it is, but they all have a common future that they want to get to. And if you're the curator of that community and you're the connector of those people, you become insanely valuable to them. And with everything happening in the world right now, especially with technology and AI and soon robotics, and the world is shifting so much, we all want to belong. We all want to connect with people like us. And there's a huge value in being the person making the connection.
Yeah, absolutely. We're both in the hospitality industry. I'm curious how you think of hospitality and curating your events. I've been fortunate enough to have been to many of them, and from the greeting at the front door of whatever venue to checking into a hotel, you seem to have it curated. And you said that word a few times today. How do you think about hospitality in general, and especially as it relates to what you do?
Yeah, for sure. I see myself, and we can all do this, as a memory maker. I like to think that I turn dreams into memories, but our experiences are successful if they create lifelong memories for people, where years down the road, someone will say, I was there. That phrase, I was there, is always the thing that drives me in terms of how we design events. And then I have a framework to creating a memorable experience. They all start with the letter E. So the first one is education, which is kind of a given for if you're doing an event like mine. But I think education has to be everywhere. And you do it so well, you're educating people on healthy food. The second one is entertainment. So there has to be a form of fun or play or excitement from the entertaining component, which is why we'll have musical performances and circus performances and sometimes ping pong tournaments and that element of play. The third one is aesthetic. And I know you do this too. You and Frank love design and aesthetic of your spaces. And we think of aesthetic as creating beauty in the physical world, but also in visuals that we use and lighting that we use, those kinds of things. And then escapism, which is part of storytelling, right? If someone's at one of our events, at some point, I want them to get lost in the story of what's happening, where they almost forget where they are. If you're sitting in a movie theater watching an amazing film, you forget what time it is. It's like you're in a flow state with the story. And I want to get to that place with our events. And the last one is emotion, where if we can evoke various kinds of emotions anchored to experience creates memory. And if you think about your whole life, the moments of extreme emotion are the ones that have the highest memories, both positive and negative, but they're all there. So adding all those up, you create memorable experiences.
What a great framework for any business. That's a good one. Thank you. Okay, Geo, next part of the podcast. It's called the Impact Community Questions. We've sent out to our audience questions for you, knowing that you're coming on the podcast. So these are rapid fire, but take as much time as you need to answer them, okay?
Yeah.
All right. First one. Have you ever been starstruck?
Not really, although I have a fun story. In 2012, I was at Times Square and I bumped into Snoop Dogg by accident. I almost hit him. That was hilarious.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay. Your current favorite workout?
Like my split?
Like, are you a CrossFit guy, a bodybuilding guy?
I lift heavy and with intention and with good form.
There you go. That's important as we get up there.
Yeah.
Okay, your number one book recommendation. This might be tough knowing how many authors I know you're friends with.
Oh, man. It depends on context.
In the last year, any books that stand out?
Well, let me give two authors. So I mentioned Seth Godin. If you're in business, you have to read all his books, especially around marketing. And then the books that have changed my life lately, which is a big, I read a lot of books, so I find value from all of them. And it's more rare when I read something and it changes trajectory of how I think. I have a friend, his name is Dr. Benjamin Hardy, and all of his books are amazing, but one called Personality Isn't Permanent that completely changed my worldview of how identity works and who we are and what personality is. Like everyone has to read that book.
Okay. What was it called again?
Personality Isn't Permanent.
Okay, we'll remember that one. Maybe equally hard question. Your all-time favorite menu item at Impact Kitchen?
Oh man, the Geo Bowl.
Okay, all right.
Well, let me explain. So in that first year, because I was there every day, I knew I've had everything. I love everything. And then I would start customizing my bowls just to be like, yeah, I want that meat and I want that. I don't want that. And then your team started just calling it a Geo Bowl because they were like, oh, that's the thing, that's Geo's custom order. And then my friends would hear me order that, and then they would go up to the cash saying, can I have a Geo Bowl, which wasn't on the menu.
Yeah.
And it happened so much that when you guys changed the menu, you added it. You called it the Lean Bowl.
Yeah, and now it's evolved to the Everyday Bowl.
Yeah.
But it still stems from
the Geo Bowl.
100%.
So that is my favorite.
Okay. All right. What's a little known fact about you?
A little known fact. Whew.
These are good questions, Impact community.
I am a freaking awesome DJ. That I could if I wanted to, I'd be like performing in that world.
All right.
And amazing pianist.
Nice. Very cool.
10 years as a kid, 10 years of conservatory, which I'm at the place where I could teach and perform. And
great.
There's a big musical background.
Nice. Okay, your biggest fear. Hard hitting.
I used to be afraid of the basic human fears like death and rejection. And I've done a lot of work where I don't have those anymore. I'm afraid of suffering and pain. I don't want to, but the bigger fear now is that people don't remember who they are, and people don't wake up to the idea that we've been granted these gifts of creation, and we're not just passive animals on a planet. We are remarkable, and we can do insanely amazing things.
Nice. I love it. Okay, your biggest inspo.
I look for inspiration outside of the industry, and I love to bring it in. So as I produce events, I'm always thinking, where can I find inspiration? Every week I go to a movie theater by myself. I've done that for 18 years, other than the COVID years. So I look for inspiration in stories from film. Cirque du Soleil are my heroes when it comes to experience design and production of what they've done. Yeah, I would say those.
Very cool. All right, how do you relax?
I usually take Fridays off, and I have all these rituals. So massage, haircut.
Haircut?
Yeah.
just joking. I have the same barber, by the way, so I can make those jokes.
Sauna. We have a sauna at the house, infrared. Reading. It's not really relaxing, but we go to the gym a lot. My wife and I work out together. We're training partners.
Oh, cool.
So with that, and then we love racket sports.
Nice.
So we do squash in the winter, tennis in the summer.
Okay.
Like twice a week.
Yeah. Where do you play squash?
At our gym.
Nice.
They have squash courts, and then we have a tennis membership thing near our house.
Okay, great. How does somebody get involved with Archangel?
Find me online and literally reach out. I always say this to everyone. I will respond to you personally. I don't have gatekeepers, and it's why I do what I do. I'm a connector. So find me on Facebook, Instagram, any of those kinds of things. You can go to destiny.live, which is the site for our big events now called Destiny Fest. But reach out to me personally. Like, find me on social somewhere.
Great. Last rapid fire question. What is your superpower, Geo?
Connecting incredible humans, designing lifelong memories, dreaming big, and making people feel like they belong.
Beautiful. Okay, Geo, heading into the last section of the podcast, thinking about the building for the future, one of Impact Kitchen's core values. I want to start off by asking you, though, when you reflect back over the last 10 years, what surprises you the most of how things have gone?
I'm the kind of person that sets goals with intention and dreams big. And what I love about how life works is that it's not the goals you set that have the most impact. It's the byproducts of doing the work towards those goals that create opportunities that wouldn't have happened if you didn't set those goals.
Yeah.
Right. So I produce films now. We started with documentaries. We're going to start doing some other like narrative feature kind of movies, which was a childhood dream, but I never in my wildest days thought I could be a movie producer. And it was creating Archangel and creating events for people like us that led me to becoming friends with an amazing director who invited me to work with him on a project. And our first film, which is called Dreamer, which is a documentary, won 3 Emmy Awards.
Incredible.
So I that would have never happened had I not started this path. But if I even tried to do movies first, it probably wouldn't have even happened, right? So it's that the magic of the byproducts.
That's so great, and I agree completely. Okay, taking you back now to years 0 through 5 of you starting Archangel, kind of on the same thread of what you just answered. At that stage, what was your headspace at? What was your mindset? And what did you think Archangel would become kind of 0 through 5?
I, at the time, was happy if I was able to produce 2 events a year, one private one larger one, where I can hang out with people that I loved. That was the beginning of everything. And because I was fulfilling my own need to build community and to be around people like me.
Yeah.
Now we have events in Canada. We have events in the US. We're going to launch in Europe soon, and see how far we can go.
Mm-hmm. Well, my next question was years 5 through 10. How did that change from years 0 through 5 of what you thought was possible?
What video games did you play as a kid?
Mario Brothers, okay. NHL 94.
Perfect. Super Mario. You're in level 1. You go through the level. You beat up all the little Goombas. You get to the end of the level. There's Bowser, the big bad boss. You have to defeat him. Sometimes you do it right away. Sometimes it takes a million tries. And then you get to level 2, and level 2 slightly harder, level 3, 4, 5. I feel like life is like that, where there's the next level of the story that gets unlocked by achieving the first level, right? So none of us know what's possible. Like whatever level you're at right now, there's the next chapter and the next chapter. And it's like doors that get opened into new rooms or new possibilities that didn't exist before you started. I think even now, we're doing things today that will probably unlock doors that I can't even predict. So, my advice or invitation to anyone listening or watching is, if you have a desire that, especially one that will impact other people in a positive way, have the courage to take that first step and see where it leads, and track your journey, and watch the magic happen.
Nice. Okay, now what does the next phase for you look like? If you could look out over 5 years, I know you just said there's going to be things that come about that you can't even think about today, but what is the roadmap looking like for you right now with how you plan on going to Europe and more into the other countries?
It is continuing to do what we do, impacting a lot more people. There will be a book project, more films. And one of the big dreams, and this has been a dream since I even started Archangel, is to create some kind of impact fund where we can pool capital and invest in startups or companies that can make the world a better place. So that's something we're dreaming up right now.
That's exciting. All right, Geo, last question of the day. I want to leave off. I know we have a lot of entrepreneurs, founders in the impact community. Can you leave us with 3 tangible strategies for either getting going in their entrepreneurial journey or getting themselves to the next level, whether it's in a business or just in life? Like, could you talk about 3 tips that you can recommend to our audience here?
Okay, so your business only grows as much as you do. There's a direct link between business growth and personal transformation. And I think part of growth is figuring out where you want to be or what you want to create, and then who do you have to become to make those dreams happen. And that often means skill acquisition or changes in behavior or personality. That's why that Ben Hardy book is so important, because it's available to all of us. And then I think surrounding yourself with people who believe your new story more than they believe your old one. All of our limitations are anchored in the past. And if you want to take off those limitations, part of it is surrounding yourself with people who are anchored into your future self versus your past self. And then using the aligned path stuff that we talked about before to figure out what you want to achieve, what you want to create, and who can support you in getting there, and helping them first, even if they can never help you at all, because the return on relationship is way more valuable than the return on any other kind of investment. And that stuff pays off over decades.
That's great, Geo. So many great insights today. Truly appreciate you being on the Impact Community Podcast. And thank you for the friendship, the inspiration. And I just can't wait. I feel like we're both just getting started. Can't wait to see what's next. Thank you.
Thank you.